Blessed to be part of your day. Kevin Miller in the morning, KIDO Talk Radio. Recently, California suffering one of the worst fires ever. What caused it? Joining us now to discuss, Dr. Tim Ball, author of Human-Caused Global Warming, The Biggest Deception in History. Dr. Ball, good morning.
Good morning, Kevin.
So here we have it, one of the worst disasters ever in any state in the country. In Idaho, we're always worried about fires. They happen all the time. People say this is global warming. Your thoughts?
Well, yeah, I hope my laugh wasn't inappropriate, but I love it when people say the word ever. The world's 4.5 billion years old. What they really mean is in government record-keeping period, or and of course that's a very short period of time, or they use ever when it suits their story to hype the thing, and of course that's what's going on here. Fires in California are normal. It's a function. In fact, fires everywhere are normal. It's part of nature to clear off the dead debris and material and let new growth grow. And in fact, in every ecosystem, the plants and the seeds are developed to accommodate the fire. The reason that this is going on right now, and you got the report to the government about disasters and worse conditions coming, that was written by the people at NOAA, and they, of course, are giving this report. But what the public don't know is that they're the same. First of all, they got the forecast wrong for hurricane in Florence. They can't forecast beyond 72 hours with any accuracy. But they are quoting the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change reports. And what the public don't know is that NOAA are a major member of that. So in other words, what they're effectively doing is quoting their own reports. This is the deep state in classic operation.
Well, let's get down to this. The president went out there and said we should do things differently, and after he left, behind his back, they started ridiculing him. Your thoughts?
Well, exactly, because what he said was, look, these fires are natural, and the major problem with the fires is the intensity has increased, as you saw in California and the town of Paradise and so on, because the governments have mismanaged the forest. Normally fires, and you in Boise, Idaho know about grass fires, they used to occur and spread way across the Great Plains. In fact, there's an entry in the Hudson Bay Company Journal at Churchill in 1790, and it says the Indians report the whole of the prairies are on fire. And what the government did was, in forest management, they put fires out. Now, normally what you get is a crown fire, what they call a crown fire. It goes through fairly quickly, causes some of the seeds to open and operate, and it burns off the dead debris. If you don't have the fire, the debris builds up, and you get what they call a base fire, which becomes so intense and so hot. You talk to the forest firefighters, they'll tell you about it. And these are the fires where you'll think they've got the fire out, and they'll go away, and then a few days later the fire pops up because it's been burning underground. And this is the condition that the government have created with their mismanagement. What they need to be doing is setting policy that fits with the natural conditions and accommodates where humans want to live. But they're not doing that. And they allow people to live and have forests right back up to the back of their houses, and then they're amazed when the fire comes through and burns their houses down.
So the fire burns underground.
When you don't let the natural fires occur, they can burn underground. They become very intense. As I said, it's called a base fire. You had this in Yellowstone. You had it huge in Yellowstone at about the same time that Mount St. Helens erupted. And I thought that the government had learned their lesson with that, but it's obvious that they haven't. And this debate, by the way, is going on not just in California, but you talk to anybody that's in the forest community, this debate's been going on for decades. And it's all due to governments thinking they know better than nature how to run things.
Well, Dr. Tim Ball joining us here, Kevin Miller in the morning, when we're talking about global warming and such. The media continues to cling on to this. We know you have a strong opinion on this stuff. What would you say to the folks in California and Idaho to stop the fires? Is it possible?
No, it's not possible, and unfortunately, they're a necessary part of nature. What you've got to do is learn to live with it and to accommodate it as best you can, and not put yourself deliberately in harm's way. I mean, this is one of the problems that we do when government offers support for people or insurance companies provide insurance. It's enabling. I mean, look at the increase in deaths due to hurricanes, because people are living in areas where hurricanes occur, and the cost is enormous. Why isn't that money being spent to build houses and buildings and electrical grid systems that don't get destroyed every time there's a hurricane? So what we need is much more sensible understanding of nature and the natural pattern, and then learning to live with that. But that's not what's happening. And as I said, you really get enabling. I know I talked to the schools, and one of the things that really disturbed me was I was talking to them about drugs, and one of the young people said to me, well, so I take drugs. What difference does it make? If something goes wrong, the government will look after me. And that's the condition that we've created, and it's just silly. And so once you understand what the natural conditions are in your area, then you plan accordingly. But we're not doing that, and that's the difficulty. The global warming issue, of course, is that it was falsely created. Notice that they blame CO2, but CO2 is only 4% of all the greenhouse gases. They never talk about water vapor, which is 95% of the greenhouse gases, and that 4% of CO2. Their assumption is that an increase in CO2 causes an increase in temperature. It doesn't do that in any of the records that we have. In every record we've got, the temperature increases before the CO2. The only place in the world where CO2 increase causes temperature increase is in the NOAA and the IPCC computer models. And when you ask them, well, how do you know CO2 causes temperature increase? They say, oh, well, we increased CO2 in our models and the temperature increased. That's what they did with this report to the government. They said, oh, well, it's going to get worse, and well, how do you know? Well, our report and our research, that's what it showed. So they're quoting themselves.
Sure. Now, Dr. Ball, let's get back to fires, though, in Idaho.
Yeah.
Many people believe that if we had the controlled burns and we cut the timber like we used to, that we'd cut down on the fires here in Idaho. Your thoughts? Yeah,
no, I would agree with them. That you can do this, but doing the control burns shows that you understand what's happening. I would agree with that. It's this idea that we can eliminate risk altogether.
But why don't they? It seems like a simple solution, sir. Why in the world would the feds and everyone else that have handcuffed us not let us get back to doing the controlled burns and the timber cutting and bringing back that industry that was so critical to this state many years ago, sir?
Well, the answer is that you look at the school system. It's been totally taken over by the Greens, and they go through the universities, and that's the whole agenda. I mean, look at when I started in university. The old professors had the prevailing wisdoms, and the new professors came in and challenged it. Now it's exactly the opposite. The young people come in and with the fixed ideas, and it's the old professors like me that are saying, "Hey, go back and look what's gone on in history." And of course, all of those graduates go into government, and so you've got a bureaucracy that has this green bias from top to bottom, and they push their agenda. This is the deep state in operation, and that's why this is happening.
I like that you call them the Greens. If people would love to hear more information or get your book, what can they do, sir?
Well, they can look at my website, Dr. Tim Ball, DrTimball.com, and also the book, as you mentioned, the Greatest Deception in History, is available on Amazon or the other, what do they say, on all normal outlets. I think isn't that the phrase they use? But those are the two places that they can get information. And by the way, I have been studying climate for over 40 years, and when I started out, global cooling was the consensus, and then it switched to global warming, and I was as opposed to both because the climate changes all the time, and it changes far more than people understand.
All right, Dr. Price, Dr. Ball, you take care. We appreciate you. Kevin Miller in the morning here, KIDO Talk Radio, getting back to this, but it is a debate that we have all the time. And one of the things that concerns a lot of us is, will our insurance rates go up because of what happened in California with the fires and everything else? You know, if Malibu isn't safe, is any of the other places safe? Do you feel safe when it comes to fires? That's one of my biggest fears in my home, losing everything. And then we have these folks, God bless them, that have lost everything, during the holiday seasons because of these, portable heating units and such. I wish there was a solution. And we have people that contributes a lot to protecting us. And, people say, well, you're in a fire zone and a fire plane like a floodplain. But in reality, this is one thing that our environmental interests, and I love the environment, are those more important than the safety of people in the state of Idaho? At 580-5436, 580-KIDO. This goes back to, what Ammon Bundy has gone through with his family and his supporters and Eric Parker and others. When you take a look at the BLM, and one of the great documentaries that I've seen, maybe some people agree with it, maybe some people don't, is American Standoff, and that's free on YouTube, that describes the differences between the BLM and the people that are trying to farm the land. We have a lot to be thankful for, the farmers and the ranchers. And maybe that becomes, cliche. But I couldn't handle that, getting up in the morning when it's dark, going home when it's dark, working the land, raising animals so that we can eat and such. We should reward those farmers and ranchers. And yet you have the BLM, and I know this firsthand, going on in the Treasure Valley. Nope, you can't use that water because of an endangered species. And we love the animals. Heck, we had a herd of deer going through the parking lot yesterday. We do that, but when it comes to us versus them, when it comes to fire safety versus sanity, where's the solution? And one can only hope President Trump gets it, right? President Trump understands this because he's very unconventional. What do politicians usually do? They tell us what we want to hear, and then we'll see them when they're up for re-election, right? 580-5436, 580-KIDO. And then you have folks that are mad that Ivanka Trump visited Wilder, Idaho.
There's no teaching involved with it because the teachers have been asked to be hands off and let the kids learn and take charge of their own education. So basically teach themselves. And they're not able to do that, which is why our stats are so low.
Right. That was a young lady that was protesting the first daughter being here. And then you have people that are mad that she didn't talk to the usual suspects in the media. I don't blame her. Quite frankly, because everybody wants the gotcha question. Hey, what about Robert Mueller? Hey, what about the Russian probe? I'm here with Tim Cook to talk about kids in Wilder, Idaho. Isn't that enough? And you have some people attacking Wilder.
It doesn't really make sense as to what they're doing here, and I think it's also using children as a photo op.
Right. We're using the kids as a photo op. No one's ever done that before. Kevin Miller, KIDO Talk Radio.
It's been debated since the 1750s, but there is no official language of the United States. English is the main unifying one and the most widely spoken, followed by Spanish, Chinese, and French. In the World War era, it was illegal to speak anything but English in some areas. 31 states officially recognize English. But now, one administrator at Westfield High School is backtracking on a plan to recognize school diversity, no longer encouraging students to learn the Pledge of Allegiance in various languages. Fairfax County Public Schools apologizing and scrapping the idea after a native Spanish speaker led the daily recital of the pledge. They say it was meant to promote engagement and inclusion, but apparently it divided. Kevin Battle, Fox News.
Thank you, Kev. Kevin Miller in the morning, KIDO Talk Radio, 107.5 FM, 580 AM. You know, I love it when people make the Pledge of Allegiance divisive or Thanksgiving divisive. You think maybe these people have their houses paid off. Maybe they don't have credit card bills. Maybe they're living the La Vida local life of Dave Ramsey, that they don't have to worry about just getting these kids to say the Pledge of Allegiance. So this happened in Virginia, and you wanted people to say the Pledge of Allegiance in another language, this one in Spanish. I was surprised that the third most prominent language in America is Chinese. Wow. Mandarin, maybe? I don't know if that's a good thing. Well, you're a bad person, Kevin Miller. How dare you? No, with the reports I've seen and the documentation we've had about China stealing everything, I don't know about that. And, you know, we've debated in the past what is the official language of the United States. In my personal opinion, when I hear people speaking another language in our country, I get offended. Now, we'll have people say, well, Kevin Miller, you're intolerant, you're this, that. Yeah, it takes somebody very smart to learn multiple languages. I will say I'm woefully ignorant. I'm down with being ignorant. In fact, when I was in the service in Turkey for a brief period of time, I would use my broken Spanish from my one semester, no, actually like 3 weeks of Spanish in high school to talk to the Turks. And we didn't really have a lot to talk about. To me, it's kind of inclusive to the people that go back and forth. I see it all the time. I have friends. They speak other languages. I'm not down with it. I think the Pledge of Allegiance needs to be in English. I think if you want to unify people, I know that if you want to unify people, they need to speak the language. Here is the principal of said Virginia high school on KIDO Talk Radio.
I think there's 80, 90 different languages at this school. And I thought that would have been a cool thing. It's inclusive. It's making them proud of their heritage and their ethnicity. I don't know. And so I was surprised that instead of continuing it, there was we're nixing it and an apology. And it didn't seem right to me.
Well, it doesn't seem right to a lot of people, but at 580-5436, 580-KIDO, I think, you know, how many languages can you take the Idaho driver's test in? I think it's, 26? In Idaho. To me, you want to drive, you want to work, speak English. I don't think that's asking too much. Traffic and weather together, our time is 8:25.
Zurich Gabbard.
Back to the phones. Barb in Sunny Slope with Kevin Miller on KIDO Talk Radio. Good morning, Barb.
Hi there. Two things. First, I was one of those victims of the 50s that couldn't speak my father's language in the home, and I regret not having learned it. But I do agree. And my family that, so many of them primary language is Spanish, agree also, by the way, that you should be speaking English. Nevertheless, I was at the Wilder School yesterday, and I was talking obviously I was hanging with the pro-Trumpers, and actually what that person who's speaking about the education and the concern they have for the technology and the kids teaching themselves is actually a pro-Trumper. There were several pro-Trumpers that were concerned about this because it's minimalizing teacher-student contact. They felt it was a way of getting, in a sense, rid of teachers, like robots might get rid of factory workers. They were also concerned for kids being on technology so much during the day. And if you think about it, if you watch TV, let's say a cartoon for a child, the scene on that TV changes every split second. And then you have a kid now in a classroom who's sitting there staring at the same teacher for 8 hours. It really, there are those that feel it produces an ADD type of situation artificially because now the child is used to being entertained. I've
Sure.
also seen
On the other hand, you got Tim Cook from Apple here.
Mm-hmm.
You've got Ivanka Trump here. I think that's a pretty big deal.
Yeah, and the woman who I know you quoted, I don't know her name. I met her only yesterday. She is from Wilder. She actually is a pro-Trumper, and there were several of us. There weren't that many people there yesterday, but there was a group of pro-Trumpers there, and we're supporting Ivanka Trump coming. We're very, very thrilled at this. Very honored to have her come in that thing. They were not against her coming at all. They were concerned about technology, and they wanted to how it's being used as babysitting in the schools and the other issues with it. But some of the pro-Trumpers were against the technology, not against Ivanka, not against them coming up, but against technology at that age at the elementary school that heavily inputted. So,
all right, Barb, I don't really appreciate your facts derailing my topic, but we appreciate it anyway.
I'm sorry. And yes, fires go underground, as I texted you or emailed you.
You emailed me. Thank you. Take care, Barb.
Hi. Okay, bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Max in Garden City with Kevin Miller on KIDO Talk Radio. Good morning, Max.
Good morning, Kevin. You know, first off, I have to agree with that lady who was just on the phone. I think that we're over-entertaining and we're putting too much technology in front of the faces of children who are too young.
Aren't we doing that in front of everybody else?
Well, I don't know.
Aren't we just keeping up with the times?
Well, the concept of self-paced instruction has been around for a long, long time, and it's proven a failure.
Well, no. You have, the Boise school system's now moving out to folks within the Treasure Valley is called the AVID program, which is peer-based learning, where they learn in groups and you have people helping each other. Look, I think there's going to be a showdown here eventually between technology and the way we've learned. And it's funny. I used to attend a conference by a young man by the name of Jerry. I would go to Philadelphia and I would go to Phoenix. And everything that he predicted, I haven't applied, but he's correct. I mean, the tablet, the phone, go to any restaurant, go anywhere, and everybody has their nose in their phone.
Okay, but look at the quality of students that we're not kicking out. I was speaking with a 17-year-old who goes to Capitol High School, and I was chatting with him at church. And I asked him about the Vietnam War. And he gave me a strange look. He said, Vietnam, is it a country? I said, yes. I had him Google it. He was blown away. He didn't know that we had a war in Vietnam. That's the kind of student we're kicking out of our high schools.
Kicking out, or you mean graduating?
Producing. We're just kicking them out the door.
I mean, one kid does not. I could give you another example of honors kids that go from public high schools, most notably in Nampa High School, to the Ivy League.
Okay, but how could this kid, this ignorant, even be allowed to graduate? Which he will, because they just move him through the system.
Maybe it's on him.
Well, now here's my last point. There's a word that originated in 1905.
You know, that's when I concede a point. I just kind of move on, but you got me on that one. Keep going.
Yeah, there's a word used in 1905 called Welsher. Also pronounced Welcher.
On a Bex?
Liberal Steve here.
Yes, that would be Liberal Steve.
A Welcher is one, according to the Merriam-Webster Dictionary, one who cheats and does not repay debts, one without honor, one who deceives with a promise of reward. So Steve is a cheat. He's dishonest. He has no honor. He is a Welsher. If you can find a dictionary that says something good about Welsher, I want to buy a copy.
I kind of, I really appreciate the back and forth between you two. I find it very entertaining.
Well, I enjoy it because he's such an easy mark.
Ooh, you called him a mark.
He's an easy mark. I can nail him any time.
Max?
Once I managed to drag him under his rock for 3 weeks.
Max, I got to run. Thank you.
Okay, bye-bye.
107.5 FM, 580 AM. Kevin Miller, KIDO Talk Radio. Good morning, Maggie.
Good morning, Kevin.
And out to Capitol Hill, exclusively Fox News Radio's Jared Halpern here in the Treasure Valley on KIDO Talk Radio. Jared, good morning.
Good morning to you.
So, Nancy, will she lead again? It doesn't look like there's anybody ready to challenge her, or is there?
Yeah, I mean, you can't beat somebody with nobody, right? So that's always been sort of the difficulty, not just for Nancy Pelosi's opponents, but remember when we had this conversation about John Boehner and Paul Ryan, right, that there would be factions within their parties that did not want them to be the Speaker of the House, but there was never an alternative who emerged that could force any sort of serious challenge. We had thought that maybe Marcia Fudge, a Democrat from Ohio, was going to mount this challenge to Leader Pelosi, and then right before Thanksgiving, she said she wasn't going to, but instead was going to chair this new committee that's going to form that looks at election voting rights. And so what we have seen over the last couple of weeks is Pelosi do what she does, which is be a very savvy legislator and make concessions and sort of give people what they want to get on board. Now, that's easy enough for today, because today all she has to do is get a majority of House Democrats. It will be an overwhelming majority that Nancy Pelosi gets. She will be the Democratic nominee for Speaker of the House when that vote happens on January 3rd. But let's assume that, the president does not get Republicans to vote for Nancy Pelosi, and it's a partisan party line vote, as we often see with Speaker of the House. She gets no support from Republicans. She's not going to have a lot of wiggle room then for Democratic defectors, because you still need an outright majority of the House, 218 votes, to become Speaker of the House. So the question will be, how many of these never Pelosi Democrats will there be? Will there be enough that could actually scuttle her bid to become Speaker of the House when the vote happens in January? That's a different sort of calculation than certainly what she's facing today.
Well, and it's a different kind of Democratic Party, Jared, than was the last time she was in power.
Yeah, remember, there are a lot of Democrats now who are not a lot, but a handful of Democrats who were elected in November who said they were not going to support Nancy Pelosi to lead the Congress. Without those Democrats, the Democrats may not have a majority. So now you're asking these new members who were responsible for making the minority party the majority party to take a vote that they said they were not going to take as their very first vote. Remember, the very first vote that a new Congress takes, they cannot do any other business in the House of Representatives until a speaker is seated. This will be the first vote for the House in the 116th Congress on January 3rd.
Jared Halpern, we always appreciate you. Thank you, sir.
Sure thing.
To your calls about the issues that matter to you with Kevin Miller. Diana in Meridian, good morning. You're on KIDO Talk Radio.
Good morning, Kevin. How are you this morning?
I am living the dream. Thank you for joining us.
Yeah, you're welcome. By the way, I just want to say thank you for what you've done for highlighting the Boise Rescue Mission and St. Vincent de Paul for all the good work. They do make a difference in the Treasure Valley to so many people in need, and it is awesome that you've done a great advocacy program for highlighting the good work. But I just came back from Denver celebrating Thanksgiving with my son and grandson, and part of what I got a chance to work with my grandson, and he wanted to do something on my iPad, so I was teaching him how to do puzzles. And it's a good skill because it takes a lot of thinking process. And it was neat to see that he wanted, once you started learning something, that he was able to start trying to do it on his own. So what Wilder is doing and using that technology, because technology is here, how much it can make a change versus just seeing a video or something like that. But it does take teachers to teach somebody how to take ownership of their learning. But it's also nice to know that it also promotes them trying to excel on their own. So it's kind of a give and take. But I think what Wilder's doing is really trying to promote that technology base and make it more part of their learning cycle. So I thought that was pretty cool that Ivanka got the opportunity to come visit our beautiful state.
I would agree with you. And, Donna, if you could, please drop me an email. 'Cause I know some folks throughout the area are really looking forward to doing some of the work with St. Vincent de Paul, and I know you've got a store that you want to get some information out on. If you could drop me an email, we'll get that on.
You're absolutely, yeah. We've got a great toy voucher program going on right now, and it's amazing to see how many good people are in this Treasure Valley supporting so many good works and helping so many people. It's absolutely amazing. Thank you for all your work.
Well, no, I appreciate it. If you send me an email, we'll get a hold of you and get you on about it.
All right. God bless. Thank you.
God bless you. Thank you. Always doing the good works you are here in the Treasure Valley. Phone numbers 580-5436, 580-KIDO. We go to Mountain Home. Barry joins us now on KIDO Talk Radio. Good morning, Barry.
Mr. Kevin Miller of KIDO Radio, 580.
Well, this voice sounds familiar.
Hey, the first time we visited, or nearly the first time, was in when they attacked Benghazi.
I remember, Barry Peterson. Good to have you on.
Thank you very much. Hey, the other day, Friday morning, I happened to be listening, and you were talking about how it was a rerun, I'm sure, but you were talking about how the Democrats are taking over the state from the great city of Boise.
Oh, they've taken over, yes. How Ada County has fallen, right.
Prior to the 1960s, every county in the state had a senator and at least one representative, patterned after the federal government.
Right.
Then there was a Supreme Court ruling that came out during the 60s and said one man, one vote. And so all the states shifted over, and half of the states became Democrat.
The libs.
Exactly right. And we have a great former state legislator named Lee Barron from Camas County, who served his freshman term with Governor Otter in the early 70s. I think it was 1972. He's done extensive work on this, on how we should go back. We should go back to what we were when we patterned ourselves after the federal government, so that the rural areas had representation or a voice in government rather than being squeezed out. And if you don't mind, I'm going to give him your name and number and ask him to call you, because he is well educated on the issue. And this issue, a resolution has been passed in the state party at least 3 times in the last 10 years.
Well, you know, Barry Peterson, the state party hasn't been the same since you were running it, in my opinion.
You're kind. But now, having discussed that issue a little bit, I want to switch over to the Benghazi one. You know how much uproar we're putting through the media on killing this fellow that was killed in Turkey?
Right. By the way, this is Catch Up with Barry Peterson on KIDO Talk Radio. Go ahead, please.
We actually did far worse when we allowed our ambassador to be killed at Benghazi.
Right.
And the Secretary of State was none other than the illustrious Hillary Clinton, who had her hands so thick in the pie, and yet there was no upheaval from the media over the fact that we had lost a U.S. ambassador.
Barry Peterson, we appreciate you. Thank you for the call. Always great to hear from our old friend, Barry Peterson. We go to Holly in Caldwell with Kevin Miller on 107.5 FM, 580 AM, KIDO Talk Radio. Good morning, Holly.
Good morning. I wanted to talk a little bit about the use of technology in the classroom and how it can be a really good thing. However, we live in a neighboring school district to Wilder, and this year there were hundreds of kids that came out of the Wilder School District because they are rated so badly in the state into our school district. And I have some concerns. What they have in the Wilder School District is each child has their own computerized learning system, and the teacher kind of facilitates that. But in my opinion, they're on the technology way too much. And I think the reason why people were probably there, yes, we love Ivanka Trump, we're glad she's here, but we don't worship individuals, and we are in a republic. And we were concerned that the guy from Apple is thinking of spreading that throughout the rest of the country, and it's obviously not working. And what a better way to indoctrinate our kids when you have control of their whole.
I'm sorry, Holly. I was trying to jump in here.
Sorry,
What's the deal with everybody? Everybody just runs me over all the time. I'm like a road bump. Anyway.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, the other side of the story is, and I've heard from people in your school district saying this, but how can you argue with Tim Cook coming in? I mean, it's one thing if he would go to Boise High, where it's the bougie, but Wilder is a grassroots district that needs every amount of love it can get. And I go back to the technology. Isn't this just the way, not that I agree with it, but isn't it just the way things are? I mean, you go out, right?
If it's the way things are, I guess it's the way things are, but we're in a republic, and if it's something we don't like and we think is ruining our kids, it
wasn't really finished with my sentence.
Sorry, dear, go ahead.
But you go somewhere, you travel about. Let's say you go to one of these fine dining restaurants or wherever, and people have their nose in their phones. And that's just the way it is. I don't agree with it. I think AI and technology is going to ruin everything. But, here I am on my little electronic device as well. So what do? Say, enough with the electronics. Let's go back to the old ways. And then you have people saying, well, we're not preparing kids, playing devil's advocate with you, Holly. I'm not filibustering.
I don't think that's going to help them run their phone any better. I think that there's a ton of studies that show the addictive nature of technology for kids. I think that there's a lot of frustration and lack of love of learning for kids. I know my own daughter in her English class where they have this 100% online. Technology is wonderful, but it's not the whole deal. And I think there's a large reason for concern, and I think their test results in Wilder prove it.
I wanted to give you the last word. Anything else? I'm a little trepid this morning.
Sorry about that. I know I'm really strong. I'm just saying that if we know in this nation that the biggest issue has been the indoctrination at the school level and of our kids and the way that they think, and we're always having to talk to them and deprogram some things that are socialist ways, I have a problem with them being inundated by technology, and I think that there's a big paycheck for Apple trying to get all that stuff into the schools, all the technology that they sell, the test scores that they should sell to them.
Right, but but they donated it, Holly. They donated the equipment. Coming up next, more of your phone calls on this. We have people that say that Ivanka shouldn't have been here.
There's no teaching involved with it because the teachers have been asked to be hands off and let the kids learn and take charge of their own education. So basically teach themselves. And they're not able to do that, which is why our stats are.
You have people doing that not only in Wilder, but across the Treasure Valley.
It doesn't really make sense as to what they're doing here. And
well, just like the truck drivers, they're trying to get rid of the teachers. Kevin Miller, KIDO Talk Radio. Little foggy out. Please be very careful today. And we go to Liberal Steve, who joins us now on KIDO Talk Radio. Good morning, Liberal Steve.
Good mid-morning, Idaho. Boy, I'll tell you, I thought Trump was in to make America great again. America's always been great. We're supposed to bring in the jobs. Now the jobs are leaving. Stocks are dropping.
What do you mean the jobs are leaving?
The jobs are leaving. GM's leaving. They're all leaving.
Well,
leaving.
Well, wait a minute. Let's hold on. Take a breath. Take a breath. The president said, if you're going to do this to Americans, then GM, we're going to take away your subsidies. I think that's a good thing.
Yeah, no, if you read into that.
Now you heard.
On the subsidies,
I'm sorry, I took a breath. Now, then you heard Mark Johnson of Channel 7, by the way, which used to be KIDO Television. Mark Johnson asked the guy at Micron, he said he loves Idaho. He's not leaving.
Oh, come on. Read between the lines. And the subsidies that he's talking about taking away were the tax subsidies that every car manufacturer gets, and that's over for the year. And they can't take nothing away from them. Come on. The future is not in Trump's hands. The future is in the hands of American children. And what Ivanka was doing yesterday. And Holly, I'm sorry, but your brain is gone.
Now,
The
you don't need
future
to
is
personally. You don't
electronic.
need to personally attack people. You realize when people attack you that I come to your defense.
Yeah, Holly has attacked me. Max has attacked me. Max attacked me today. You know, Max is like pocket change.
Well, no, he called you a welcher, and right now you are a welcher.
Well, no, Donald Trump's a welcher. When he pays up, I'll pay up. Max is like pocket change.
That wasn't
Max
what we
is-
agreed to.
Max is like pocket change. You throw them in the jar at the end of the night, and then when you got enough, you might be able to buy something. That's all he is. He's a yacker talker, and wasn't he a doctor?
Yes,
And in the ER?
I guess, yes.
Then why does he even consider my name, Liberal Steve? A doctor should put himself above those small things like liberals and Liberal Steve. He's an idiot, Max.
Now that's not
is
very
an
nice.
Idiot.
Thank you for the
I don't
call.
care. Yeah.
Traffic and weather together. And Tea Party Bob brings us home.
You know, Mr. Miller, you had a great show up until the time you allowed that lunkhead Liberal Steve on again. He's not even funny anymore, just an annoying gnat. You know, the visit by Ivanka was definitely a plus for Wilder in Idaho, but I'm not quite sure the computers are the way to go. I still believe that there's no way to replace a quality teacher who's going to spend time one-on-one with the students. And I do believe our real problem is basically what we are teaching our children in schools, and not necessarily how we are teaching them. One more thing about our good friend Geraldo Rivera complaining about the treatment of the immigrants at the border. I had to think to myself, here's a guy with a net worth of excess of $15 million, and I was wondering how much money he was willing to spend on maybe bringing the immigrants up to live near him. Maybe somebody should ask him that question. You know, the liberal-leaning clown that came out of ABC's fake news has been a critic of President Trump since the primaries.